I'm Liz Clayman with today's Clayman Confidential. I'm at the SALT conference in Las Vegas, here with former Prime Minister of Greece, George Papandreou. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Liz.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, we've got a situation that looks very similar to what Greece has been going through. In Illinois, you have protests, you have a budget that is a mess, underfunded pensions, and skyrocketing property taxes. I have to ask, is Illinois the next Greece?
Good question. I'm not an expert on what's happening in Illinois, but I'd come to what I saw with the tax problem in Greece. And this is not just a local problem. What we see now is huge tax evasion we see this with the Panama Papers, with the WikiLeaks in Luxembourg, that we have offshores and tax havens around the world, and that's basically robbing our countries of very important revenues. So when I tried to hit tax evasion in Greece, and I had to hike taxes, a lot of people were able to take their money out, not declare it, and hide it somewhere around the world. This is a global problem. It's a European problem. It's a U.S. problem. Now, that's one thing we have to tackle. Now, can Illinois do it alone? No. But bringing in transparency, bringing in better governance, bringing in best practices and how you deal with this is going to be important. Otherwise, you're going to put the burden on the middle class and the poor that don't really have the possibility to tax evade.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. It is the middle class and the poor who are protesting, and they think that the solution in Illinois is to tax traders at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or the hedge fund guys. They feel that they should be paying more in taxes. You know, at a time when some people perceive them as the job creators, is that really the way to go, whether it's Greece, Illinois, or anywhere else in the world?
Two things here. Yes, I would not be against taxing the hedge funds, but do it in a way where there's a level playing field. You can't do it just in Illinois because they're just going to move out and go somewhere else. So you have to do this at least at the U.S. level and maybe at the global level, and so that they will be competitive. They'll stay competitive with others. The second is we need some public investment around the world, and particularly in the developing country. We can't expect, but we need to work with the private sector in this. Taking Europe, for example, we need a stimulus. Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank, has been doing a QE over the last year or two, but he's saying quantitative easing is not going to be enough. We need some form of stimulus.
Okay, well, just so you know, we had an $830 billion stimulus in the U.S., and much of it went to block grants or keeping people employed versus big shovel-ready projects. Well, shovel-ready unemployment benefits don't quite square with a lot of people who pay taxes and felt that that package should have been used in a more appropriate way.
Well, I won't disagree with you on that. I don't know the details of the package here in the United States, but I think if we were to work public sector with the private sector to say, what are the projects that are not just going to stimulate our economy, maybe not just going to allow for more consumerism, but what are the things that the U.S. needs? I know in Europe we could say we need a big railroad system, a new transportation system. We have the East and the West. There used to be the Cold War, where it was the Soviet Union. We are not linked. We have the North and the South. We need an energy grid. We need alternative energy, or green energy, as you want to call it. Let's invest in that. Now is the time to actually borrow from the markets, because the interest rates are very low. That's good for the future generations. We should be able to tell our children and the millennial generation, we're investing, we're going to invest in education, we're going to invest in the infrastructure, we're going to make our country more competitive, or our regions more competitive. We're talking about Europe, vis-a-vis, let's say, China, that is now investing in this infrastructure and will be ahead of us in a decade or so.
Let me just quickly ask you, to Greece, there is a big debt payment that Greece must make in July to the IMF, to the European Union. Will Greece default on that?
No, Greece now has just taken new austerity measures. We have made huge sacrifices over the last 6 years. I would say a recession over the last 9 years. I believe now that, first of all, we're getting help to pay this off, and we want to go out into the markets. Things will stabilize in Greece now. I believe that even though that's a very big burden on the Greek people, there will also be a deal on the debt, so that there'll be a further lightening of the debt. I think now is the opportunity for investment in Greece. Now is the time when there are great opportunities, prices have adjusted,
But people don't want to invest when they see Molotov cocktails being thrown. They get nervous.
I can understand that, but that's the very, very small minority. Greece is a stable country. It's a peaceful country. It's a beautiful country. It's got great opportunities, whether it's in agricultural products. I mean, the Mediterranean or Greek diet is something you can invest in. Real estate, green energy, fisheries.
Well, here in the United States,
number one,
Greek yogurt is the hottest
Greek
thing in
yogurt,
the
yes,
whole world.
absolutely. So, yes, I know President Obama. He said he eats it every morning.
I think a lot of people do. I do have to focus one thing, though, the migrant situation. On the island of Lesbos, there were so many migrants coming from Syria, from the Middle East. Is that going to break the back of Greece financially?
That is a good question. We were more a transit country, and most of the migrants, refugees, went up to Northern Europe, but quite a few have stayed in Greece. There's now a deal with Turkey so that they stay in Turkey. They've been fighting the traffickers, the human traffickers. A lot of money in there, over $1 billion in profits from this illegal trade. But the key issue is to solve the Syrian problem. So in the end, we have to look at the key issues. Secondly, we have to see how we even invest in these people. These refugees want, most of them, to go back to their country at some point. Let's make them, understand what our democracies are, what our societies are, and give them the skills, the training. They will be the engineers and the architects of a new society in the Middle East tomorrow.
We can only hope.
And that's something that we owe, I think, to the Middle East, the developed world, because we really need to see a Middle East which is peaceful, and they could be the architects of a very different, peaceful Middle East.
One last question about Illinois. If you were to warn Illinois off from making a mistake that Greece made, what would that be? What warning would you give Illinois?
I would say that the first is to try to make sure your own citizens of Illinois, participate in the decision making and understand what the problems are. They should be part of the solution and don't do things against them. It may be difficult decisions, very difficult decisions that have to be made. Whatever the decisions are to be made, try to bring them in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It's
Liz,
a pleasure
thank you
to
very
have
much.
you.
Thank you.
Prime Minister George Papandreou. Watch all of the interviews from here at the SALT Conference in Las Vegas on lizclayman.com, and watch Countdown to the Closing Bell every weekday, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Fox Business Network.